Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. Guys, welcome to Fuel Your Drive. I am your host, Josh Chura. We have another amazing episode in store for you today. I am pumped right now. So let me tell you. All right, guys. So let's start off. Well, what is a Ford assembly line, a $205 million exit, a beer with no booze have in common? Well, one man. My guest today started his career working the factory floor, built one of the biggest names in automotive, digital marketing, sold it to cars.com. Then he did the last thing anyone expected. He quit drinking. He started a beer company. This is a story about reinventing yourself, discipline, and doing things that are hard on purpose. And you know I love that. As you guys know, I'm Josh York, host of Fuel Your Drive, and we are about to get rocking. Guys, Joe Chura, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, super pumped, man. I'm super pumped. So there's so much I want to get into right now, like the exit, the brewery, the Ironman stuff, like all of it. But I want to start in the very beginning because obviously, your story is not a typical founder story. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners and let's get into it from there.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to circumstances that led me to work at the Ford assembly plant on the assembly line, building the 1998 Ford Taurus. So I'll just show my age a little bit there. But I'll just say in short, the first couple of months there were extremely hard. I didn't think I was going to make it. It was a harsh environment. It was pretty much my first real job too. I was 20 years old and worked in the trim department. And anyone who hasn't seen an assembly plant before, the cars roll down slowly, 72 cars per hour at the time. So one every 52 seconds. Like in my mind before the plant, I would think the cars stop, they let you do your thing, and then they go. But that's not the way it is at all. So what was happening is I couldn't keep up. Had to put on the seatbelt, the B pillar, scuff plate, all these different parts, and it was really challenging. But after a while, I got used to it. And then I started to realize that my future, I wanted to do more with my future. I started to get some ambition, and the only way out of where I was at the plant, because it was an amazing job as a 20-year-old, I was super blessed to have it, was to go to school. So I enrolled in school, worked at the night shift at Ford, and then would have my textbooks, but I didn't have any time to study because I was working and sleeping pretty much. And then one day I was like, well, why don't I just bring my textbook by my job? And as I work on the cars, I have about 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds in between building a car. I could just read a little bit. And I did that. And I started to read a paragraph at a time. And I was like, man, I'm retaining this information pretty well. And I did it, 72 times an hour for 8 to 10 hours a day for 4 years. And I graduated college. And that really led me to a place of exploring the automotive industry, as you mentioned, understanding car dealers and seeing this world that I didn't know existed of these very successful people, which then in turn led me to create one of the fastest growing digital marketing agencies and software companies in the automotive space.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I really love what you just touched on, that you're taking 10 seconds, like just a way of you thinking that through. That's really, really smart. So guys, you're listening, like listen to that. Your time is valuable and use it valuable. I talk about this all the time. So that's great. Now, was there a moment like when you were on that assembly line where you're like, I can't do this for 30 years? And did you have that moment and you're like, all right, like just to be, thinking bigger to the point where like, this is not scalable and it's not for me.
Yes, absolutely. My third, fourth day there, I would go on breaks and I would talk to people at the plant, and everyone had this common language that they use of how much more time you have left here. It was almost like a prison sentence. And mind you, I want to say this is a great job, and it was a great job. Then it's a great job for many people, but that's the way we talk. I have 25 years left. I had 30 years left. I have 2 years left. And that was just like, there was no better place to be. And I would like work on these cars, and through the cars, I would see these supervisors walk away or walk around with like radios, and like they just were more dressed up and looked professional. I was like, man, I want to be George Hall. I want to be that guy, And there's a guy that was very like commanding, almost like a general or almost like a officer in in the military, like that's how he was like to me, and I admired him because I would just stare at him all day long through this car. And I was like, well, the only way to do that is to go through school. And that's essentially why I started to do it, because there's no way I could have lasted that long, or that 30 years. I'm like, in my mind, I was like, what are you talking about? Like you're just okay with that? And I will say a lesson there though is, like, as I mentioned, my aspiration, my dream in life, my dream was to be a manager at that plant, because that was the environment I was in. I was so
Yep.
constrained by the environment that I didn't know any better. The most successful people in my world were in that plant. And it wasn't until I got out that I saw more of it.
I love that. And I want, that's a real key takeaway right there. You are who you surround yourself with. It's very important to understand that. So if you want to be around, people that are going to, elevate you, you got to be people who are already elevated. If you want to be below that, then you hang around. It's, so you say, like, all the time, we've talked about this on other podcasts, you hang around winners, you're going to be a winner. You hang around losers, you're going to be a loser. Well, that's great. Now, let's talk about the build and the exit, because I think, people are really going to enjoy that part. So you sold to cars.com for 205 million. Everyone dreams about that day. And I know you and I just met recently, but I'm super happy for you. Like, I was like, when I heard that, I was like, that's unbelievable. And
Thank you.
like, absolutely. Now, what surprised you most about life after the wire hit? Like, I always think about that because I know my time's coming, and I'm just like, what is that feeling like? Because I know how I am, and again, this is not about me; it's about you. But what was that like? Like, I can't even imagine the amount of pain, sacrifice, and how hard you worked, and then you finally got that. Like, let's walk through that.
Yeah, well, the pain and sacrifice, it's definitely there. Like a lot of folks, even now in the business I have today, it's like you see above the waterline, right? But as you know, in business, everything happens below it, and then
Yep.
the public perception happens, when people can see you. So there was a lot of hardships along the way, and I didn't pay myself for a very long time. And when I was able to see that transfer come over, it was just the most surreal feeling. It was surreal, like, even leading up to it. The day that I negotiated the deal, the day it was Halloween, the day that we ended up closing it. It was Valentine's Day, and it was just like these weird, like, landmark days for whatever reason. But like the reality of it is, like, the first thing I thought is like, where's this money at? Like, is it gone? Like, well, you know what I mean? It's so, like, it's just money in a digital phone, and you're looking at your phone and you're like, holy shit. So I, like, went to the bank the next day. I'm like, is this really here? Like, you don't even realize it, but you're like, it's it. I'd be I'd be remiss not to say it was like the most incredible feeling
Sure, I'm
for
sure. What did you do when you had, like, did you go out and purchase something? Did you put your money into investments? Like, what did you do? I know, I'm sure right away it was just like, kind of like, you probably didn't do much because you were just so shocked at it. I'd probably be refreshing that account like 100 times, like, not believing it.
yeah, yeah. I since I was in the automotive industry, I wouldn't say the first thing I did, but I did buy a nice car, for the kind of the first time, and, that was incredible, but that was very, very fleeting. Meaning, like, unbelievably grateful and humbling, but as you know, like, anything you purchase that's like a thing, like, after a while, you're just like, it doesn't give you the joy that it thinks it would. Now,
100%.
and I've talked to my wife about, like, "Hey, do I get rid of it?" But then every summer, I get to put the top down and drive it, and she's smiling, and she's like, "You really wanna get rid of this?" I'm like, "No, no, it's because it reminds you of what you went through," like, all of those things. So, that's one thing. The other thing I did is the way that I sold the business was to myself and my wife, and then, meaning the proceeds, but I created trusts, one for my kids, but then I had an idea of, like, what's the biggest thing, like, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brothers struggle with, and that's education funding for their kids. So I took them out to eat with my wife, and I announced that I would pay for all their kids' colleges, and that was probably the coolest
Oh,
feeling. And now it's like, a few years later, and their kids are starting to get to that age where they're in high school and they're approaching college, and and that money's just been kind of sitting there accruing interest and playing in the market without anyone touching it. So that was a really cool feeling. And then my mom worked for a charity and I made a donation there that was pretty substantial too as she was retiring. So that those were a few things that kind of meant a lot to me.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. You're making me feel good. I love that. It's just great to hear stuff like that. So, this is something I think about all the time, and I'm sure others do too. A lot of founders obviously tie their whole identity to their company.
Mhm.
Now, did you know who Joe was without Dealer Inspire? Like, what did you get wrong, about, just, what did you say that, was this right? Should I have sold? Should I have not sold? Like, I'm sure that was kind of like a shock because you're kind of trying to find yourself after you sold, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there was moments when I knew I was in the process of selling because it takes a while, especially with a public company. You got to go through a ton of diligence and a bunch of stuff. So, and you can't really tell anyone either. So, like, there was a very small group who knew. And I remember being at like my own holiday Christmas party. I was having doubts about it. I'm like, man, should I do this? Like, the everything in business was like a rocket ship, and it came down to really feeling like I found the right home. Cars.com is in the Chicago area. We're in the Chicago area. They they like were like, we want to leave you guys alone, kind of like they're like, you run your business, you do a really good job at it. We want to take your innovation and your mindset and apply it to this bigger company. And that was really exciting. But the most kind of exciting thing through it all was the employees got better benefits. They immediately got increased compensation. When you're a startup, as you know, like, you can't pay people most of the time like the market rate. So they're
Yeah.
doing it for other reasons than just pay. And it was pretty cool to see them graduate to something that was just much more sustainable and more in market. And I don't regret it for a second. Could I have got more money? Could I have got, yes, there's like, life's full of that stuff. But like, the reality is they treated the team well. They all grew, they had career paths. It was just like maturing. And at the time I had 375 employees. And by the time I stepped down from being the CEO, I had 1,000. So growing it to that scale without a company that's as sophisticated as a cars.com would have just been a nightmare.
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. Really, really inspiring. Great stuff. So this is one of the things, the next thing I want to touch on that I loved. So you quit drinking and then started a beer company. Walk me through that.
Yeah, it's crazy. As you were giving the intro, I was like, it still seems like a weird dream. And I've been in situations, I'm sure you have in your life, where you're just like, is this like a weird dream? And you're gonna wake up and you're like, yeah, why would I have done that?
Hmm.
And certainly my 25-year-old self would have laughed at this idea. But the after I sold the business, I gradually, just like it happens to us all, like, you start to get out of shape and gain weight. I shouldn't say it happens to us all, but it's easy to happen to us, especially if you're like, when I was younger, I was an athlete. I was really into sports. So your metabolism's such that your body's used to burning a bunch of calories, and all of a sudden you're sedentary. And being on the line, at least I was moving around and standing up 10 hours a day. But now, like, sitting behind a computer, I gained a bunch of weight. I was drinking too much. My father died of alcoholism in 2006. My brother, I was watching him struggle, and I started to feel these massive, like, cravings at, like, 5 o'clock or on weekends, and I was like, "Man, I just," and I would succumb to those, and I would have a drink, but then I was more of a binge drinker. I would have, like, after I had 2, it was, like, a really good idea to have 2 more, you know? And then I would
Yeah.
go eat bad, and then next thing I knew, I was 250 pounds. COVID hits. Now there's every excuse in the world to do more of that, and my wife and I look at each other, and she was much better shape than me, but not optimal for herself. And we were like, let's do this challenge called 75 hard. And we actually looked at Thanksgiving and we reversed it. And we were like, okay, well, here's when we need to start. So it's like, midsummer or whatever. So we're starting in the summer, and then or late summer. So we started in the summer just to end so we could have wine by Thanksgiving. And after the first few days, I started to have these massive cravings, like I mentioned, and NA beer was really a great tool for me to curb those cravings. And I was like, man, there's just something here. And it continued to happen. And then after 30 days of not drinking, I was like, I have superpowers. Like, this is crazy. Like, and my skin looked better, and I was getting more in shape. And so there's all these like real positive benefits. And I realized that I'd been under the cloud of alcohol pretty much since I was 15. You can go maybe a few days without drinking or a week, but it's not until you step away from like at least 3 weeks that you start to see measurable differences. And that's what I
Yep.
started to feel. And I was like, man, there's something here. And then at that year, it was like 2020, heading to 2021, Huberman had like the number one podcast on the internet regarding alcohol consumption. And then Rich Roll comes and has one. And like, you know what I mean? There's just like, for the first time, there's these people that like a lot of dudes admire, and they're talking about it. Like, and you're like, whoa, like this isn't a thing, and to have 2 drinks a day is not like good for you. So
Yep.
I started to see that shift in society, and I was like, man, there's something here. And I felt like there was something missing to your earlier question of like, after I sold, like what did I regret it? I felt like as the company grew and I started doing less creation, I started to like lose myself a little bit, and I started to lose what I loved, but I didn't realize it because it was like a slow burn. It was like being in a room and the oxygen slowly gets seeped out and you don't even know you're dying, and that's pretty dramatic. But that's kind of how I felt with I'm like, why am I happy? You know what I mean? It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, I commend you on stopping drinking. That's huge, and getting into fitness is huge. And obviously, you're looking incredible today. And I know you're an endurance runner now, and you do great things. I know you just told me you were at with the Hydrox in the city. You did that, right?
High Rocks, yeah, we did
Yep,
in New
Hydrox.
York. We're a partner of High Rocks.
Yep, you did the Hydrox. So that's awesome, really great. So, let's talk about Go Brewing now. So you start Go Brewing, right? Everyone called, non-alcohol beer a fad. What did you see? What did you see in the market and yourself? And, what did you tell yourself that you knew that there was a movement there?
I asked myself, in 5 years from now, are people going to drink more or less? And because of, as I mentioned, like Huberman and like this now, like cultural shift or this knowledge that was put out there to younger people, let's say, then people would start thinking about that differently and find alternatives to alcohol consumption. So I looked at it as like slightly akin to cigarettes in that, we have these habits. I think it's way more ingrained in our society, but the idea was not to like fully go away from drinking. Like I am not 100% sober to this day. Like I still drink in moderation, but it's to be more mindful and to have these NA beverages either at designated days or mixing with your alcohol beverages, and you're just gonna be able to have a much more healthy experience with everything.
I like that. So who is Go Brewing's customer? What is it, a sober person? Is it an athlete?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say that when we first launched, we did an exercise, and I'd recommend any person do this if they're building a company, and I'm sure you did as well, where you're developing persona. It's like if you're going to talk to like one person, who is that person? Who's the ideal customer? And when we were doing this exercise, it was literally like I created myself. I was like a 40-year-old who's like driving a F-150 and, has a couple kids and, just wants to get in shape. And I really kind of designed this persona around myself, which isn't not true. But what I found really quickly is that the first day we opened, and we had one of the first non-alcoholic tap rooms in America, because we make all our own product, and we have since day one, that there's a lot of people that are sober that like non-alcoholic beer, but the majority actually still drink. And that's who I was going after initially. I thought it was like a bunch of people that wanted to cut back, reduce their alcohol consumption, take on better habits. But what I found is that about 30% of our customer base or about 30% of our customer base is sober. So they do not drink at all. And this is what they consume. And I didn't realize that that was going to be a market. But in terms of specific demographics, 35 to 54, we edge more male. It's about 65% male, 35% female. The number one attributes, for lack of better words, that people like or their lifestyle is like outdoors. They like to be outdoors. They like to be somewhat fit, but not necessarily fanatics. Like I would say, like you and I might be. Um, not that
Right.
necessarily, but then there is a cohort of folks that are like that. So the the thing that wasn't great as I grew is I realized how many people it touched. So that's a good thing in a way, but it's a bad thing when it comes to marketing because you're like, well, how am I going to like build this brand that really focuses, keep focusing on the persona when we have so many of them? So we have to cater to a lot of different people.
Got it. I love that. I love that. So, Joe, you're big on doing hard things, Ironmans, early mornings, no shortcuts. So for the entrepreneurs, even the entrepreneurs listening right now who are grinding and just doesn't see the light yet, and I relate to this as well. Um, how does physical discipline translate directly into business drive?
There is so much clarity you get when you're working out, when you're running, when you're
Yep.
sweating, when you're exhausting your muscles, that it affects your brain in a very unique way. It's like it untaps something. There's not one time when I go out for a run that I don't like take out my notes or scribe something. There's not one time that that doesn't happen. And
Agree.
you have to get your mind moving. And it also helps you with overcome these emotions you have as an entrepreneur. My friend and investor and I guess pseudo mentor Rich Roll, he has this really great saying that says mood follows action. And many times as an entrepreneur, you get stuck and you just feel like shit. And you're like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm an idiot. Why did I do this? And you
Yeah.
start shitting on yourself. And you, I found the only way to overcome that is by taking action. And it's really hard. Just like if you have something really overwhelming happen, you'll feel better if you start taking action on those things. And you might wake up with a lot of anxiety. I do all the time now because it's such a capital intensive business that we have great KPIs, but like you gotta, it's not like someone's pitching at you from one direction. Like people are throwing the ball at you in all different ways and you got to be ready for it. And that causes a ton of stress. And you just have to wake up and you have to take action to deal with those things. So mood follows action, and exercise is so key to having that mental clarity to give yourself an advantage that you might have a hard time to find otherwise.
I could not agree any more than that. I talk about this all the time because in the early days of business, I used to suffer with extreme anxiety, like I mean extreme, and I used to always say that movement would cure that, and it really would. I'd have to force myself to get out there to do it. Like I didn't want to do it because I just didn't feel like doing it. And 5 minutes in, 10 minutes, by 15 minutes in, I'm feeling like a different person. So listen to what Joe's saying there. Super important. And, he's right about the ideas. He is right. The first thing I do in the morning, I jump in my ice bath every day, Joe, and I have actually a waterproof pad and pencil that sits right next to it. And sometimes I don't like to usually do it because I feel like I'm cheating if I take my hands out. But if I think of something, I'll pull it in. And as I'm sitting in there, I'm writing a note so I don't forget because I come up with some great ideas in the morning when I'm, doing my whole routine. So I
That's
love that.
amazing. Is your ice bath inside or outside?
It's in my garage. Shout out
Oh,
to
okay.
Morosco. It's the best of the best. I don't know if you ever used the Morosco ice bath, but it's the real deal. The real
Oh,
deal.
I'll check it out. I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
it's the real deal. Yeah, you could ping me offline. I could set you up. I know the founder very well, and they make the best of the best. The best. My thing's at 27 degrees every day, like clockwork. It's great.
Oh my God, 27. You're a madman.
Yeah, I
That's
definitely am. I
cold.
definitely am. All right, so we're gonna get towards the end here. This is something I like to do. I call it the rapid fire. So I'm just gonna throw something out, and some of these you might get stumped on. You might have to think for a second. But what's one habit you'll never give up?
Taking advantage of time. We all have more time in life, and everyone thinks we don't. And I'm telling you, 15 seconds changed my life.
Love that. Love that. Okay, next one. Now, before you answer, think this one through. Where did you learn more? The factory floor or the boardroom?
I would say for me, it was the boardroom. The factory floor, I learned how to get through school, and I learned what I needed to get there. But there's nothing more than the experience of sitting in a boardroom, getting questions thrown at you, and having to anticipate what that is, and then learning, and then having mentors within there, because boardrooms aren't adversarial. They're in it to help you and your company grow.
Love it. Love it. What's the best piece of advice you ever received and who gave it to you?
I heard this from Jesse Itzler, and it's because I get this question often. There's so much good advice out there, aside from what I said, Rich Roll, the mood follows action. But I think you have to create your own luck, and especially nowadays when everything is I don't even know like how job recruiters and potential employees are going to work together, because there's going to be AI on both sides of things. So you got to differentiate yourself. The only way you're going to do that is by showing up in a different way. And typically that means creating your own luck and doing things that are unorthodox, and
Yep.
being where maybe you shouldn't be, or going above and beyond to then get on someone's radar. And just like a quick tangent, and I know we're close to time here. My daughter's at a volleyball camp. I just dropped her off in Florida, and I gave her like a MacBook Air before she left. I'm teaching her how to like do some Claude coding, and she's like, "What should my first project be?" And I said, "Why don't you redesign the website for the school that you're at, and then show it to them in 2 weeks from now, halfway through.
Mm, I love
And
that.
I
That's
bet
great.
you can show them that website that you designed for them, and it's better than the website they have today, and they might buy it from you." Right? None of that would have happened without creating her own luck. I'm not saying she's going to listen to me, but she seemed excited about it. But it's just an example, right? And all of a sudden you're like, man, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? It's creating your own luck, not just sitting back and be like, I hope they ask me to create a website. No one's going to fucking ask you that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to
Yep.
ask you to do shit. Life's about
Yep.
putting yourself out there.
That this has been a great episode. That right there was it right there. That I hope everyone's listening to that. Go back 10, 15 seconds. That was the golden nugget right there. That was I should end it right now. That was incredible. We're not going to end it yet, but that was great. So if Gym Guys and Go Brewing did a collab, what are we calling it, Joe?
Uh, well, the obvious one is go gym guys.
I listen, I
Right.
love it. I was thinking that we should do something. I think it'd be awesome. I think that'd be awesome. Like a special short term type of play to get all my customers on it. That'd be great.
Yeah, man. If you, yeah, whatever you want to do. We also, because we make our own product, we can do like cool cans too that don't. We could take a style we already have, like make the can look cool with your branding on it, and then offer it to your audience. Like that's no thing, and then sell it online, and then real easy. We do all our own fulfillment. If you order from us, you get it in 2 days, regardless. So that's
That's
very
awesome.
possible.
That's awesome. Well, where can everyone find you? Where can they get their hands on Go Brewing?
You can go, the best place is the retail stores near you. So you could go on our website, you could go to store locator, you can click a button, it'll find where you're at. If we're not near you, which hopefully we are, then we're on Amazon, on our websites, and then you can find out information about me at joechura.com as well. But gobrewing.com is the primary place to check out.
Love it. Incredible. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, living proof that the comeback is always bigger than the setback. And remember something, discipline is the ultimate performance enhancer. If this episode got you fired up, guys, as you know, please share, like, tell a friend, share with one friend. Go back to that part I said that was incredible because that summed up everything in life. Create your own luck. I'm Josh York, guys. Until next time, fuel your drive. See ya. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, brother.
Legend. Do you know my name? My name is Legend.